What if the very act of seeking enlightenment is what keeps it out of reach? Every tradition that has ever pointed toward awakening agrees on one uncomfortable truth. You cannot chase it into existence. The self that wants to become enlightened is the very obstacle standing in the way. What we call the spiritual path is often just the mind building a more elaborate cage and calling it progress. Rumi didn't write about comfort, he wrote about annihilation, being unmade in the fire of the beloved. Your most infuriating relationships are not obstacles to growth, they are the growth. The person who reliably triggers your anger, your jealousy, your insecurity, they are showing you something you've refused to look at directly. Carl Jung called it projection. We see most clearly in others what we cannot face in ourselves. Every argument you keep having, that's the lesson. Every pattern you can't escape, that's the curriculum. In Sufi practice, the beloved is not a person. The beloved is a mirror held so close, you can no longer pretend the reflection belongs to someone else. Here is the central koan of the spiritual life. The mind that wants freedom is built from the same architecture that creates the prison. You cannot think your way out of thinking. You cannot control your way into surrender. Zen masters understood this. They gave students unanswerable questions, not to be solved, but to exhaust the solver to run the grasping mechanism until it seizes completely. What neuroscience now calls default mode network deactivation, that quiet, objectless awareness beneath all the noise, Zen simply called the mind before thought. It was always there. You were just too busy looking for it to notice it. The Tibetan Dzogchen tradition cuts through centuries of accumulated ritual with a single radical assertion. The nature of mind is already awake, not potentially awake, not awakening towards something already. The clouds of thought and identity pass through a sky that was never not clear. Zen calls the same recognition satori. Not an achievement you earn, but a seeing through that strips away what was never real. What is genuinely astonishing is not that enlightenment is rare, it's that we spend entire lifetimes piling technique upon technique, seeking a ground that has been beneath our feet since the very moment we started looking. In 2004, Richard Davidson put long-term Buddhist meditators in fMRI machines and found something with no precedent in the scientific literature: gamma-wave synchrony at levels that simply should not exist in a waking brain. The default mode network, the region responsible for the inner voice that says I want, I fear, I am, went quiet during deep meditation in ways that looked neurologically almost like dreamless sleep. Except the meditators were not less alert, they were more alert. The brain wasn't shutting down, it was dropping the most expensive habit it had ever developed: the continuous construction of a self. The ancient traditions called this liberation. The neuroscientists called it one of the most significant findings in the history of consciousness research. They were describing the same phenomenon. After all the philosophy, the neuroscience, the ancient traditions, you arrive here, a single breath. Not a symbolic breath, this one, right now. The body has never needed instructions to be present. It has always been present. It is not a vehicle for awareness. It is awareness, unmediated, unadorned, already complete. The ordinary moment, fully inhabited, is the thing everyone has been searching for. There was never a destination. There was only ever this, the moment you stopped searching long enough to notice what had always been here.